Okay. Sorry? I'm speaking. I speak to you. Go on. Really? Yeah. You're actually not allowed to. Yeah. It's 5 foot. So worst case scenario, go straight to band. Right? Yeah. If he's here. As long as wait for the Stanford right now. Why do you be here? Why do you have the Stanford? Just teaching it out of first day. He's gonna be here visiting the company. Sorry? He's gonna be here right on that. I know. If his dog here, tell everyone here, right? They're not here on top. That's right. Good. Everyone, welcome to the Snowpack for February. First off, I'd like to acknowledge that we're gathering at traditional ancestral events. So this whole thing is just to get us all together. So we can get amateurs together with professionals. That's kind of the whole point of it. The information we present here are our own observations to the best of our ability. This presentation does not replace actual avalanche training. Sign up to an AST or CAA course this winter. What you do with the information we present is solely your responsibility, so use it responsibly. Thanks to our sponsors. First of all, Essential, thanks for hosting us, Bobby. The Fernie Fix, Fernie Search and Rescue, Fernie Alpine Resort, EBSOP, Avalanche Canada, and Mountain Addicts. Got a couple speakers today. We've got Olivia Johnson from the Abcan South Rockies team. And speaking after our intermission, we've got Ben Jackman. Olivia, all yours.
Yeah, okay. Which one do I press? Hello, everyone. If any of you guys have seen me host the Elk Valley Snow and Avalanche Workshop, you know I love a microphone. So if I start to get carried away, I really hope someone tells me. So for those that don't know me, my name is Olivia. I am the newest member of the South Rockies field team. I call myself the rookie. We've had a pretty fantastic season so far. It's been really fun. I've had really tons of fun working with these guys. So let's just get into it. Has anyone been to the State of the Snowpack event in Fernie here before? Yes. Show of hands. And was anyone here last month at the last State of the Snowpack? Nice. That looks like less than 50%. So my presentation today is going to be building on the snowpack that Lisa was talking about last time. I will kind of sum up what she was talking about and kind of just build on that. So for those that weren't here, you're not going to miss out on too much. So I remember Lisa finishing her presentation telling us she had some bad news. And that was the temperature was about to plummet. This was mid-January. No snow in the forecast. Oh no, it sounded like doom and gloom. But we had a really strong snowpack. Our hazard rating in all of our subregions was low, low, and low, which was great. She was encouraging you guys to go out, get after it, as long as you kept assessing the terrain and just using good judgments. But she's like, yeah, now's the time to explore. I may have done some unnecessary editing, which I shouldn't have done. Stand by. Can I go back? Is that gonna...
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. So, she kind of gave you guys, encouragement to go out and explore the backcountry. And you guys did, and it was awesome. We had so many min reports from the last 2 weeks of January from people just going out, ski touring, skiing big lines, or riding, I should say, snowboarders, you're included as well. Riding big lines, pushing it, going out further in the backcountry. The users submitted data was awesome. We loved reading about all of the trips you guys were going on. It was awesome. Oh no, I'm pressing it twice. Sorry, I'm bad at this. So I'll just talk a little bit about our snowpack, starting from the very beginning up until now, and so you can kind of get a good idea of how it's been forming. So, no, that's not. I'm hesitant to press it again in case it doubles. Where am I aiming it to? Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, perfect. So yeah, starting in November, we had an early November snowfall, followed by a warming event up to 1,900 meters, which kind of created moist facets of ground. Typically, over the last few years, we've seen an early snowfall in November. We get all excited for the ski season, but then the temperatures turn quite cold, and that basal snowpack becomes really faceted and starts to become a bit of a problem either later on in the season or right away at the beginning of the season. But this year, we got started off on a good foot. Yeah, that warming event kind of saved us. It made for a really good base layer in our snowpack. November continued. We had several storms with just small amounts of precip each time. The temperatures were mild and consistent, and that was great. First week of December, stopped getting snow just for a few more days. We had some solar warming and we had some clear nights. And for those that are thinking that way, the clear nights started to develop some surface ore. We saw a bit of a melt freeze crust as well. And then finally on December 6th and 7th, the snow started again. We got some new snow and that melt freeze crust and surface ore layer got buried. We definitely had a few talks. We weren't sure if that was going to become a problem later on in the season, but after a few weeks of zero avalanche activity, no test results, we gained confidence in that layer and we kind of just canned it. It sort of just disappeared, slipped away. Snowpack became well bonded again, so it was definitely a non-event. As December carried on, we had consistent storms. Again, more mild temperatures, and our only real concern was just wind. So we're getting some strong winds, especially on the east side of the Continental Divide, creating some wind slab in the alpine and tree line elevations. But besides the wind slab, we really weren't worried about too much. Very first few days of January, again, we got some pretty awesome snowfall. And I remember this because I was at Tunnel Creek for New Year's and we were skiing some well, maybe not wasty powder, but some really good powder, zero signs of instabilities. It was a really great hut trip. And then we got back and it turns out Mother Nature got the memo about dry January. That was kind of the last bit of snow we saw for the rest of the month. And because of that, with those clear skies, no new precip, we saw the development of sun crusts on solar aspects, southerly aspects. We saw some wind pressed surfaces. That wind slab kind of stopped developing because there was no real snow on the surface to move around. So we talk about wind pressed surfaces, but we weren't concerned about wind slab. And of course, with clear skies and the temperatures did start to drop throughout January, we're starting to see some surface ore formation. Throughout the rest of the month, the last few weeks, I guess I should say at point 2 there, that's where Lisa kind of left us. We were mostly just concerned about the surface conditions, how to manage skiing on sun crusts, riding on winds, wind press, that kind of stuff. So then later on in January, again, still dry, but the temperatures started to drop quite a bit. They stayed cold throughout the rest of the month. We had clear sky. So if you're thinking about it, more cold temperatures, clear sky, you might be thinking surface ore formation. But we also saw a lot of faceting in our snowpack. So as the month progressed, really our snowpack just became this one big faceted layer. And I know facets can sometimes sound scary. You hear the word facets and we do associate them with certain types of avalanche problems or certain types of weak layers. But really, throughout January, the facets weren't an issue. We had a very consistent, consolidated snowpack. It was facets top to bottom. It was one strong, uniform layer. So we had no issues. And that's why you guys were all out there getting after it, skiing some pretty big lines for January in this area, which was awesome. So in this case, the facets actually weren't a bad thing. And then February hit. Evening of January 31st into February 1st, we finally started to see the snow. Yay, that was awesome. Yeah, we had 2 days of strong winds, big snowfall. Everyone was excited to finally see some snowfall. It was great. But it is important to remember that new storm snow was burying this big layer of consolidated facets. After those first 2 days of snow, again, the temperatures dropped, kind of what we were just seeing in the last 10 days. We just had another period of really cold temperatures. which again have sort of faceted that newer storm snow. And then just over this family day long weekend, we had a bit more super low density storm snow fall. And then today we had blue sky. It was awesome. This is a video that I just want to share with you guys. Might be hard to see on the screen, but this was sent to us on our South Rockies Instagram page. Oh yeah, might not show, might be a little laggy, but there happened to be someone ski touring in Fishbowl during the height of the storm, February 2nd, and saw this big powder cloud and was able to record this giant natural avalanche happening in real time. It's super great video. Sorry, it doesn't really show super well, but you can see this powder cloud start at the top of Fishbowl and go all the way to the bottom. And so to be able to capture this kind of footage is really cool. So we were glad to see it. Gave us really good insight as to what was happening. We were getting big natural avalanches throughout this storm. I'm not sure if that's really working out. But anyway, thank you, Eddie. That was a fantastic video. I think they ended up calling that a natural size 3 out of Fishbowl. Yeah, basically started at the top of the bowl on the head wall and just ran its course all the way down to the bottom there. For those of you guys that are graph people, I just thought I'd put these up here. It's kind of our seasonal history. On the first graph there, we have the snow water equivalent. So basically the amount of water that has fallen from the sky this season, whether it's in rain form, snow form, slush, whatever, that is the amount of water that has fallen from the sky. So we're just going to be looking at the black line, kind of just show us consistently moving its way up. We had those snowfalls throughout November, December, beginning of January, and then you can see it plateaus right as dry January hits. We're calling that the January drought. And then there's a little blip at the beginning of February, and it's kind of stayed stagnant since then. And then on the other side, we just have the highs and lows of the daily temperatures. Yeah, I mean, kind of like I said, we've had a lot of cold temperatures this year. And my biggest takeaway from this graph is that if you just drew an average, that line would just be kind of going down and down and down. It's just been dropping. And yeah, lots of cold temps end of January, cold temps kind of early February. So just important to remember that, yeah, the snowpack has been unchanged for quite a while. And we finally have just seen the most change in our snowpack in the last 2 weeks. Those first 2 days of February, we saw up to 70 centimeters of new snow, which is a lot to get in 2 days. And then you add, combine that with some strong winds. Yeah, we could really be building in certain parts of the snowpack. We've also had consistently cold temperatures. So when it stays cold, really cold for a long period of time, inside the snowpack, those crystals are changing and we're starting to see faceting. So we had faceting all throughout January, new snow, and now with these cold temperatures, that newer snow is starting to facet. And then over the family day long weekend, we saw about 20 to 30 centimeters of new snow. But it is important to remember it is super low density. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, super low density storm snow. So this brings us to today. I kind of refined this presentation yesterday, but I'll talk about today's hazard. Hasn't really changed since yesterday, but we're forecasting for 2 main subregions in our entire region. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the Lizard Range and Flathead region, which is kind of the area around Fernie into the Flathead all the way down to the border. And then the rest of our region is called the South Rockies region. So it's everything kind of north of Elkford down to Sparwood and then everything east of the Continental Divide. In both of these regions, our hazard rating is moderate in the alpine, moderate in the tree line, and low in the BTL. So both of these areas each have 2 avalanche problems, but the avalanche problems are slightly different. So we'll talk about that. In the Lizard Range and Flathead region, our first problem is a persistent slab problem. You'll find it at all elevations, all aspects. The probability of an avalanche, we put that as possible, but up to a size 2.5. Our second problem is a dry use problem that's associated with that low density storm snow, super low density. It doesn't have enough kind of oomph to make a slab. Yeah, and you can find that again, all elevations, all aspects. The chance of avalanches, the probability has been put from likely to very likely, up to a size 2. And then bringing it to the South Rockies. We don't have a persistent slab problem in the South Rockies. Instead, our first problem is a wind slab problem. So when it was really cold here, beginning of February, we didn't see much wind, but the South Rockies, especially kind of Alberta, east side of the divide, they did see a ton of wind. They had really strong winds moving that new storm snow around. So they are definitely dealing with a wind slab problem right now. This has changed slightly from yesterday, so it's only found in the alpine and tree line. The aspect is the same, north, south, and west aspects. The chance of an avalanche possible, and then up to a size 2 as well. And then they are also dealing with the same dry loose problem. All aspects, all elevations, possible to likely, but the size of the avalanche is going to be a little bit smaller because they didn't get quite as much snow as kind of the Fernie area did over the weekend. So I think this is important to talk about. Why is there no persistent slab in the South Rockies, but we are dealing with one in the Lizard Range? Throughout January, our snowpack in the South Rockies region and in the Lizard Flathead region, they were actually pretty much identical. The only main difference was that the South Rockies snowpack was a lot shallower. So faceted top to bottom, there was no difference there, just a lot less snow in the South Rockies region. So yeah, even though they did get snow as well, they got those first 2 days of February in the South Rockies, they did see, maybe 30 to 40 centimeters of new snow. It's going on top of that big faceted layer. There actually hasn't been any avalanche activity on that at all in the South Rockies. No test results, no natural or rider triggered avalanches. So it's kind of given us confidence that there isn't really a problem with that interface. Because of all that wind, there's now a wind slab on top of all those facets, and they're dealing with more of a wind slab problem. And then, yeah, on the other side, we're hearing about avalanche activity, WUMPs, test results, all this kind of stuff in the Lizard Range. And so just by comparing those two, we know we have this problem in the Lizard Range, but it's not really present in the South Rockies. Also, yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that shallower snowpack, it promotes faceting a lot more quickly. So if they have less storm snow, it might have just maybe faceted out. Maybe it's bonding a bit better. I can't speak for that for sure, but there's just some speculation there. But yeah, so no persistent slab problem in the South Rockies. Just a bit of terrain and travel advice that's currently posted. Yeah, that dry January, that January drought, that was a long time without power. And we all live in Fernie where we're really used to skiing deep down. So yeah, it's great to see all this new snow. I'm super excited. I'm sure you guys are as well. But just really important to remember that don't get that powder fever. Just because there's new snow, you still need to be out there making good decisions, constantly observing. We do have avalanche problems now where we didn't before. So the snowpack is changing. Persistent weak layers are notoriously hard to predict. Typically, a persistent slab interface is pretty cut and dry. We know what it is. It might be surface ore on a crust or facets on a crust or something that we kind of understand why that persistent weak layer exists. It's typically the distribution, what aspect, what elevation, that gives us that uncertainty. But once we kind of figure out the distribution of this PWL, it starts to become a bit easier to forecast. However, this PWL is not as black and white. Instead of it being surface on a crust, we just have a giant layer of facets. We have tons of certainty surrounding the distribution. We're not too sure when it's going to react, why it's not really reacting. I'm not sure if it's because of these cold temps that we've been having, but yeah, they are notoriously hard to predict. The clues about this weak layer are not found on the surface. They are buried in the snowpack. So yeah, it just we're surrounded by a lot of uncertainty for this one. So if you're moving around the terrain, it's really important to continuously assess, look, dig in the snow, give yourself a bit more confidence. And of course, post min reports about what you're seeing, because that gives us confidence as well and gives us more data and helps us to start to forecast this a little bit more accurately. Yeah, for an avalanche summary. So yeah, one thing that I saw pretty much on most of the min reports that I read in the last few, I guess, week, 2 weeks, is that lots of wumping. People have been reporting, lots of large wumps, people in big flat open fields where they actually feel the settlement in the snow. So when we hear the word wump, that is a failure in the snowpack. That is a settlement on that weak layer. So we know something is happening underneath the surface. We've also gotten lots of reports of numerous small loose dry avalanches, both natural and rider triggered. And it's important to know when you hear loose dry avalanches, especially size 1s, not big sizes, I guess. Just keep in mind that, I don't want you to chalk it up to just being slough when you're skiing or riding. You're like, oh, okay, that was just some slough, no big deal. Loose dries can be quite problematic. If you're in the wrong terrain and you get knocked off your feet and now you're going into a gully, you're going over some cliffs. Loose dries can be a bit of an issue. But also the deposit of a loose dry avalanche can maybe potentially put enough weight on that PWL that it might step down to a bigger avalanche. Again, we just have all this uncertainty surrounding that, so we're not quite sure. So don't chalk up that loose dry to being not problematic. It definitely could be a situation. And then in the South Rockies, lots of reports of both natural and rider triggered wind slabs. So we're kind of approaching a fork in the road with this January drought layer, as we're calling it. We've gotten some new snow on this persistent weak layer. We've heard some wumps. We're getting tons of positive test results. But we're not actually seeing any avalanche activity, which is kind of strange. I don't know, has anyone here seen any avalanches in the last, 10 days or so on this persistent weak layer?
We had a small release today.
Was it on the PWL or was it a loose dry or? Right, okay, yeah, could be some surface more faceting. Totally, so Matt, write him in. So it's kind of we're in a bit of a weird situation. We are going to be getting some weather, and I'll talk to that in a little bit. And we're wondering if maybe with this new load on this persistent weak layer, we might start to see some actual avalanche activity. The one thing is concerning because that is a settlement, that is a failure. We're getting these test results, but we're not actually seeing any avalanches. And that could be maybe because this low density snow doesn't have enough mass, or it's not slabbing, so we're not actually seeing an avalanche run. But we're just at a bit of a weird point right now. Lots of uncertainty surrounding it. So you do see, we're calling on you guys. If you guys see any avalanche activity or lack of avalanche activity on this layer, that is really great information to have. The forecaster confidence. So when Lisa was standing up here talking last month, the forecaster confidence was high. We had lots of good field data, lots of good snowpack data. We understood the snowpack really well. The weather was really stable. So it gave the forecasters lots of confidence. Kind of dropped it down to moderate. And that is because, again, these PWLs are extremely hard to predict. All those clues are lying within the snowpack. We know it's there. We know what we think should be happening, but it isn't happening. No avalanches, but we are seeing hearing wumping and getting test results. So just lots of uncertainty surrounding this layer. And then looking at the weather. So again, sorry, I posted this, I screen grabbed this yesterday, so things have changed slightly, but in the short range, there isn't a ton of change. It was looking like kind of -10 to -13 tree line temps for the next few days. Now they've kind of put -5, starting to warm up a little bit on Thursday. Light wind, no new precip. Hopefully it was another beautiful day like today. That could carry on for a few days and I'd be happy. However, if anyone has taken a leap and looked farther ahead than that, you might have noticed a couple of things in our incoming weather. So I just grabbed this off Spot WX, and just a kind of a note, don't take this, for certain. We're still so far out from this. Anything kind of past the next few days is, we're not quite sure about the temperatures or the precip amounts. They definitely have lots of room to change. But two things that I do notice. If you guys look at that top red line on the top graph there, that's just our daily average temp. And starting kind of Saturday, it looks like it's going to warm up. Sunday, Monday look real warm into Tuesday, and then kind of beyond that, it's too far to tell. But one thing I noticed about that is that there's no overnight refreeze. So that could also be quite concerning. And then if you look at the second graph on the bottom there, that's the precip. We're looking at that gray swoop. The gray swoop means snow, and the blue swoop, unfortunately, means rain. So yeah, when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing really warm weather, lots of precip, all kind of coming in starting this weekend. To be fair, we haven't had a rain event in Fernie yet this year, so we're overdue. So yeah, knowing that we have this persistent slab problem kind of hiding out in the snowpack, this has just given us some things to think about. With warming temps, lots of new incoming precip, there's going to be added weight to this persistent weak layer. We might start to see it wake up, we might start to see results, might give us confidence in that maybe it actually isn't going to react like we thought it would. But all of this is unknown, we won't know until it actually happens. That being said, we've been talking about faceting all night, but if the temperatures do gradually start to get warm, that might slow the faceting or actually start to heal those facets and turn them into what we call rounds in the snowpack as well. So just remember that snowpack doesn't like rapid change. It likes slow change over time, and that's usually what helps it heal. So if it goes from being, minus 10, minus 13 to quickly being above 0, you get that rapid rise in temperature, we might start seeing some issues there. But with slow warming, that could also help with the faceting. And yeah, I think I just need to quickly touch on the glide cracks as well, because this is something that beginning of the season, throughout all of January, people were posting that we were seeing glide cracks everywhere. There was a really good video posted by the Fernie Ski Patrols about all the glide cracks at the ski hill, talking about how they manage them. Yeah, and Lisa kind of talked about it as well last month. But yeah, glide cracks, again, are quite unpredictable. But when they do slide, they will go full feature. They slide right on the ground level. I think there's a common misconception that they slide when the snowpack gets really warm or moist at ground, which is true, it does happen, but they also can release when the snowpack goes from being really warm to being really cold, and it gets really brittle, and they can slide then as well. So really, they kind of can just slide whenever they want. So yeah, very unpredictable. But if we are getting warm temps, lots of precip, potentially lots of rain that's going to kind of soak down to ground, we might be seeing some glide slab activity. So knowing where these are in your touring day is going to be extremely important, because this is something you don't want to be on when it releases. You don't want to be under it when it releases. In it, definitely don't want to be there. Yeah, so just don't forget about those glide cracks. So yeah, just our key takeaways. Yeah, the lower snowpack, mid to lower snowpack is faceted, but don't be scared by the word facets. It's well consolidated, it's solid. That's all the stuff we were skiing kind of throughout that January drought. Yeah, that we have a persistent weak layer, but lots of uncertainty surrounding the distribution. Yeah, the cold weather that we had kind of after that first February storm has promoted some faceting in that old storm snow, that February 1st and 2nd storm snow. And then, yeah, we got some crazy weather incoming, or maybe we don't, who knows, we'll see. But yeah, just note that with that incoming weather, we'll definitely probably be seeing an increase in avalanche hazard. And who would I be? I wouldn't be a South Rockies field team member if I didn't push you guys to post min reports. Like I said, every little bit of information that you guys post is super helpful. Even if you just go out skiing and all you post on your min is that it was sunny, that really helps us. If we were expecting cloudy, overcast day and you post that it was sunny, okay, that gives us a little bit of information. So yeah, we want your min, post one. And that's kind of it. Hope that cleared up our snowpack for you guys. Yeah, does anybody have any questions? And if not, I'll be sticking around for a bit. You can always come chat with me. Happy to talk about some things.
How's the east side of Kootenay? Radical?
Yeah. So the question was, how is the east side of the Continental Divide? So the Crow's Nest Pass, Alberta area. Yeah, they definitely have a shallower snowpack, but just like us, like with this new snow, yeah, there's definitely some areas that are rideable. Last time when Lisa was here, she was talking about the wind scouring in the Alpine, in the Crow's Nest Pass. There was almost no snow from the extreme winds that they've been having for a long time. But yeah, things are definitely shaping up. They're looking better. I mean, for sure, go out. The crew over there does a really good job of grooming all the sled trails and giving you access to some great terrain. Okay, I'll put the microphone down.
Hey guys, we'll take a short break, and when we get back, we'll hear from Ben Jackman. But I gotta plug this. We got the AGM coming up for the Fernie Trails and Ski Touring Club. So if you guys are concerned about how the cabins work, you know, public access to our ski touring terrain, it'd be great to see a lot of folks show up. I mean, and honestly, the irony that it's at the senior center is not lost to me. I'm like the second youngest director. So we're like, we need some young folks. Okay, well, we'll be back in 5. Sorry? Not as loud. Okay. Please go back.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight and listening to Olivia and myself talk here. Thanks to Olivia for the update. It's really helped kind of set the stage for my presentation here. And it's kind of quite serendipitous when Ian asked me to talk way back in the fall about timing and kind of content that I might be able to contribute here. We spoke about this, this concept of low and moderate danger with big avalanches, and the timing of this, the uncertainty with this PWL has been buried, and that it's not really reacted yet. So, it seems to have worked out pretty well timing-wise as far as the delivery of this content. Just as similar as a little caveat that Ian delivered at the start, these nights don't replace proper avalanche training or education. These are just kind of some of my thoughts that came together as I was spitballing ideas for this content. So take it with a grain of salt, and hopefully it can help out a little bit here. And yeah, hopefully it's we'll just get into it. Just so I can read the room a little bit here. How many people in here are AST1 trained? Okay, fantastic. How many people out here are AST2 trained? Okay. And how many people out here have industry training as far from the CAA, level 1, level 2, whatever? Okay. So, and anyone else with either nothing or kind of some other jurisdiction training? Okay. Sounds good. So most of this language should be pretty common to everyone. Hopefully you haven't taken it to a too high a level here. But we wanted to talk about moderate danger, big avalanches. The original thought was low danger, big avalanches, but I kept it moderate and seemed a little bit appropriate to the night. So what I want to kind of do is distill that a little bit further and get into the words there and what does that actually mean. So moderate danger, big avalanches, speaking to the current condition that's developing. You might have heard these words before of low likelihood, and high consequence. So the question that we ask is, how likely is that avalanche going to happen? And if it is going to happen, how big and destructive is it going to be? So potentially, depending on, I'm trying to be a little bit vague here, but potentially, depending on how this next week plays out, the weeks following that, we could end up in this scenario where the sensitivity to trigger is not really easy, it's kind of stubborn, but if it goes, it's going to be destructive, right? High consequence. So I'm going to be paraphrasing a little bit from a fellow named Gordon Graham, who's a risk specialist from the States that's kind of focused his career towards police and fire. I've taken some information that he gives out in some presentations and kind of tried to apply it to this field. So when we're doing risky behavior, we can kind of break it up into 4 different quadrants. We've got low risk, low frequency engagements that are, as it is, low risk, low frequency, right? We don't do them very often, but even if we do it, we take on the risk. The risk is that something bad, even if it happens, it's not super consequential, right? So that'd be skiing, a low angle slope, 25 degrees. Pretty rare that avalanches happen on 25 degrees. Not very often, right? Then bumping it up a little bit, we have this low risk, high frequency. So think about traversing, the very bottom of a run out of a large path that we might do all the time. Let's think about, a place like Emerald Lake at just past Lake Louise, or any of the areas around Lake Louise. There's public passing through them all the time. High frequency, but low risk because their exposure is way, way down below the path, right? Then we have these scenarios of high risk, high frequency. So if it's high risk, but it's high frequency, we do it all the time, we're better equipped to handle the situation. So if we're a well-experienced backcountry skier, We're well experienced in dealing with storm slab instabilities. We understand the terrain. We do it all the time. We can manage ourselves quite well. Moving into like a workplace setting up at the ski resort or at Island Lake Lodge, for example, they're really, really good at dealing with storm slab instabilities because they do it all the time, right? So high risk, high frequency. If you manage it appropriately, not so much of a big problem. Where we get into scary situations, where we have this high risk and low frequency, where the consequences, if something goes wrong, are really bad, and we're not super well equipped or experienced to deal with the problem. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so we could potentially be going into one of these situations depending on how this layer plays out, right? So just diving in a little bit more to the information here as far as like, you know, it's really easy to play it safe when it's high because it's high, avalanches are happening all the time. As the descriptions here from the public danger scale, this is the one that Avalanche Canada used to communicate danger to the public, is that natural avalanches are likely, human-triggered avalanches are very likely, large avalanches in many areas or very large avalanches in specific areas. And then bumping it down a notch, considerable natural avalanches are possible, human-triggered avalanches are likely, small avalanches in many areas or large avalanches in specific areas, very large avalanches in isolated areas. So those of you with enough education will know that considerable is like where a lot of accidents happen, right? Because it's just considerable, right? And then if this problem goes long enough and the condition, pardon me, I've been sick all week, and the condition stabilizes enough, but there's still kind of the odd sporadic, there's lots of uncertainty with it, we might enter a period of moderate hazard where natural avalanches are unlikely, human-triggered avalanches are possible. I'm just going to pause on that term possible. What does possible mean to everyone? Like, maybe yes, maybe no, 50%. Just ask yourself that, what does possible mean? It's pretty vague in itself, right, that word, okay? And then small avalanches in specific areas or large avalanches in isolated areas. So specific is kind of common terrain features and isolated areas is kind of rare features, right? So, but still there's this opportunity to produce large avalanches, okay? So I'm going to dial it in a little bit further. Let's talk about small and large because that's a relative term depending on who you are and what you're doing out in the mountains and in the terrain that you're in. So apologize, this is the clearest picture I could get of this. This is kind of what we use in the professional realm, and this kind of qualifies these sizes a little bit more. So even down here in the size 2 range, in the moderate range, size 2 avalanches in specific areas, and size 2 to 3 avalanches in isolated areas. Okay, so that's at moderate. The size 2 is big enough to bury, injure, or kill us, right? And size 3 could bury, destroy a car, damage a truck, destroy a wood frame house, or break a few mature trees. We're talking about run lengths of 100 meters in general for a size 1, for a size 2, and 1,000 meters for a size 3. So when you think of like low probability, high consequence, or moderate, big avalanches, how big do you think? Your brain automatically goes to like these massive, big destructive avalanches that you've heard in your head, right? But even a size 2, which is the second smallest on the cards, is still big enough to bury, injure, or kill anyone. And then that's amplified by terrain, right? So what kind of conditions do we have, or can we have, that kind of present these low probability, high consequence scenarios? They're generally persistent layers that get buried into snowpack and persist for a long time through the season. They allow snowpack to grow and build over them and gradually stabilize to a point where they'll support that snowpack in most areas. And these layers are crust layers. surface hoar layers, surface hoar and crust, depth hoar layers. And sorry, yeah, there's a delay here. I was trying to make sure I don't blast through the slides accidentally. And facet layers. And so right now we're dealing with a facet layer from the dry period through January. I know back a couple of weeks ago when I was ski touring, there was, surface hoar kind of sporadic everywhere. It was windy, so that adds to a bit of uncertainty here on whether there's a surface hoar problem as well. But, for this instance, we've got this January drought facet layer that we're concerned with. And then this system problem, the way it develops is that we have snowpack building over the weak layer, whether it be incrementally, 5 centimeters here, 10 centimeters there, or we get a big load, 20, 30, 50 centimeters over the weak layer. There may be an initial avalanche cycle that slowly decreases in activity over time. There may be a very widespread avalanche cycle, which kind of eliminates the problem completely. But what I'm alluding to is this condition where we may start to get an initial avalanche cycle, or like right now, as Olivia said, there's been no avalanches reported on this weak layer. I suspect that places like the ski resort where they were poking that storm snow as it came in early February, it might have flushed out a lot of the overburden over the weak layer. But in the backcountry, there hasn't really been much activity, right? It's say cold, the slab development over the weak layer has been limited. There's been load on it, but maybe not quite enough. And slowly the snowpack begins to stabilize over time. I remember watching a webinar a few years ago when the lizard range was experiencing a surface hoar problem, and Simon Horton, one of the forecasters there, he kind of quoted that an initial time length of a persistent weak layer was somewhere around, if it being active, was around 6 to 8 weeks, and then it might gradually taper off. So don't quote me on that 100%, but I seem to have that memorized in my head. And then what happens, we slowly gain confidence in it, we move out in the mountains, we haven't seen much activity on it, and then someone might hit that sweet spot right in that shallow spot where there's enough slab built over that weak layer, and blammo, you've got a big avalanche. So moving forward, the question is, we're all keen skiers. We want to get out in the mountains. We don't want to just go home, stay at home and be too scared of this persistent weak layer. We want to get out there. So we've got to ask ourselves, how do we set ourselves up the best to behave in the mountains, right? And it starts many weeks ago with these persistent weak layers. And like I said, these are just some ideas that I kind of spitballed together to think, how can I kind of set up a scene to kind of set up a member of the public well to make good decisions in the backcountry in this scenario, right? Has anyone heard of the term situational awareness? It's definitely in the industry training program. How about AST 1 and 2 level? Yeah. Blank. Hands up if you've heard situational awareness. Okay, good, sweet. Okay, so situational awareness, it's the state of awareness, and it's broken down into 3 phases. It's a perception of the condition. So when we get up in the morning and we're going to plan our day, we think that there's a condition going on out there. Then we go out to the field, we start our ski tour, we start looking around, we check out the weather as it's going, we feel the snow under our feet. It's giving us some feedback already. And then we have to comprehend that new information and compare it to the original perception that we had. And then what's really important is how we process that data and project it into the further decisions that we make through that day. So what I was thinking is that it might be good to conceptualize situational awareness on this broader scale, zooming way, way out in time. and geographic scale. So think back to several weeks ago when we're out there ripping around, skiing every line possible in the Lizard Range. I spent a couple of nights up at Tunnel Creek and I looked around and I was like, Leroy's was skied. Every single line on Planetary Ridge was skied. I skied around the Lizard Range. I went up to Thunder Meadows, skied lines that I've never skied in 14 years I've lived here, and I probably won't ski for another 10 years. It was wild, but all the while we're looking around at snowpack condition, at the surface condition. And there's this old saying that the longer the snow grain was exposed to the air, the bigger a problem was going to be. So that was quite a long drought that the surface was exposed. So there's a large potential for it to be a problem later on. So it starts way back there. We want to broaden our lens of time and terrain. We're going to look at things on the bigger picture during the lead up, and then take that information and drill it right down to when you want to go out to the field in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So, weeks ago, as we're out there, maybe it's time to start building our mental models. A mental model is an internal representation of an external reality based on learning and experience. We start plugging all this stuff into our head. We're walking around on the snow. We're looking, okay, I've been down in the south end of the Lizard Range. I've been down in the north end of the range. We're seeing heavily wind scoured. We're seeing facets on all aspects, faceted surface conditions, all aspects, all elevations. There was some surface ore, sporadic. It was windy, it was big, it was small, it was all over the place. We start plugging that stuff into our head and building our mental model before the layer gets buried. We try and capture the distribution of it, maybe take some notes on our phone or whatever. And then if and when we have an initial avalanche cycle, try and pay attention to what slopes have released and what slopes have remained intact. And just backing it up a little bit before that layer gets buried. Also try and capture some images. Like we've all got phones in our pocket that can record all sorts of information. Capture some images of where the height of the snowpack is throughout the terrain at the time before it gets buried. So you can flick back through those images and say, okay, when we were here, this layer, the snowpack was this deep, this rock was exposed, it was shallow over there, it was deep over there. I could see that it was wind scoured over there, and there was, it was softer over there. Start building that mental model. We also have some great tools. We have things like the MIN report. Here's an example of a photo I took many years ago, just trying to capture the surface ore in an area. This was during that cycle in January, going up to the Three Sisters, just a random photo, but I'm capturing here just how wind scoured it was. Normally I would ski tour up this slope, no problems, and kind of go up here, but the surface was so hard here that even with my Dynafit toe piece locked right up, my ski popped right off. So that's how wind affected it was up there. So I've kind of plugged that into my memory bank, and that was kind of common throughout the whole area, right? So everyone remember how, like, by the end of that period, the surface condition was pretty trashed and variable, hard and wind affected. You know what? Yeah. Then we got MIN reports here. I remember looking at MIN reports reporting surface ore and heavy wind effect and all that kind of stuff. So we can read those MIN reports and plug that stuff into our memory. Follow the Outcan South Rockies field team on Instagram. They produce a lot of cool content, and that's available to plug into your mental model as you're just scrolling away. And then it's also a good archive of information. So when it does start snowing, you can look back and say, oh, they got results here on what day, or talking about distribution in this location on that day. And then moving forward recently, we've had a little bit of snow. As Olivia mentioned, there's been starting to see some reports of woofing. So we had this report from a couple of days ago. Some folks went out to run Jeremy's aborted because they had a big woof. So I'm just going to back it up a bit here. Here's a report of a big natural avalanche in the fishbowl from kind of about a week ago, I think. I've cut off the date there. Yeah, so just 2 days ago, the group came up to hit the Run Jeremy, getting the ridge, started making our way south through every little blah, 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 big warmth cracking backed away. This is common. There was another big report saying that there was a big warmth in Trespass Ridge in Tunnel Creek. And then the other thing we can do is, if you're not paying attention to the min reports as they come in, you can also go onto the Avalanche Canada website and you can look at all the archived min reports. So you can go in, you can select a date range. I've selected January 14th through February 18th. I've selected the South Rockies region, which I would assume encompasses the Lizard Range, and you can scroll through all of the min reports. I think there was about 75 plus or minus min reports in that period. So these are all what I consider pertinent information to help build that mental model of the conditions. So when you're going out there, you can help understand what's what and where's where. Any questions so far? Making sense? Okay, cool. The other thing you can do is you can go through the forecast archive and pull out tidbits of information there as well. And this might be getting a little bit philosophical here, but I'm currently reading a book from Rick Rubin, and if you know who Rick Rubin is, he's one of the most important music producers in the last 25 years, responsible for the Beastie Boys, Red Hot